What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Arrow, and in today's video I want to talk to you about my Ice Shot build that was an absolute blast. We've made improvements, huge changes, lots more single target. Let's get right into it. A lot of the information here is going to be down in my MAXROLL planner down below. Make sure you check that out. If you have questions, make sure to stop by my Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0__. That is the best place to reach me and the best place to drop that Twitch Prime. If you watch my last video, I explained most of the way that the build works, so make sure you check that one out first. I'll link that in the description, maybe on screen somewhere. But we've made some significant changes to push the build further into the endgame. The budget of the build is still somewhere between 10 and 20 divines. I'd say you could probably spend 1 to 2 divines on every gear slot and have what I have or better. The only mandatory unique for this change is the Thief's Torment ring. This ring allows you to recover both life and mana on hit, and for our single target setup, it is absolutely mandatory. I've seen some versions of similar builds that do a ring swap. You can actually do that if you want, but I just found it to be not worth it. Personally, for me, I don't want to have extra rings in my inventory that I swap in and out. However, you can get a ton more damage if you're willing to do that ring swap for your mapping. So what is the big change? It is Lightning Rod. With the news that we are basically not getting any balance changes until the reset patch where we get a new economy, I decided let's lean in and use what we know is good. It's very easy for a lightning arrow build to make use of Lightning Rod as they already invest into various lightning damage, but for us we have to do a weapon swap. At first I was a little bit annoyed. I didn't like the setup. I still think the UI is terrible for making 2 trees, but I did all the hard work. You don't have to figure out or test things with weapon swaps. I have what I believe to be the most efficient way to do this. You can just add it to your build and do way more single target. We use 2 bows, one designed for our cold damage and our ice shot, and then our offhand that is designed for lightning damage with lightning rod. Our ice shot has a cast on freeze setup, which is constantly putting out frost walls that when you hit them, they shatter and you get to do shotgun damage to the enemies behind them. This ups your clear like crazy and often will one-shot any rare that is behind the wall. When you weapon swap, that will go offline and you will get cast on shock. When you shock with lightning rod, it will cast ball lightnings, which will trigger your lightning rods to go off additional times. Basically, you just hold down lightning rod at that point. I like to put down a ball lightning to get these shocks rolling, and then you just hold down lightning rod on the enemy and the ball lightnings will cast and probably slow your computer down a little bit for a second or two until the boss is dead. This build can scale way higher. Like I said, basically no more than 1 div or 2 divs in any slot. So if you've got some money to spend, you really can juice this up. A headhunter belt would do wonders for mapping, as well as 2 really good rare rings. And then the bow you can scale significantly higher than what I have. Of course, we've invested even further into Energy Shield because Energy Shield is very strong and added Grim Feast. So let's jump in game. I'm not going to talk about every single gear piece because a lot of this is already explained, but we'll talk about the most important things and get you going on your way if you want to play this build. All right, let's go. All right, we have a level 94 Deadeye here. We got 2100 life, 1500 ES, and 73% out of combat evasion rating. When you dodge roll and you have your 10 stacks of Tailwind, it's up to 79% to dodge everything in the game, which is actually quite nice. We are rocking acrobatics, so that is a huge evasion total and feels really nice. So let's quickly talk about the 2 different bows that we're using. In the first slot, you want a bow with 1 additional arrow and as much physical damage as you can get on your prefixes. This bow cost me 2 divines, and you can easily get something like this or better for 2 divs now as bow prices continue to drop. I would also recommend getting some leech or mana per enemy killed as a suffix to help sustain, particularly if you get a lot of gem levels. On my quiver, it's basically fizz damage or cold damage, damage with bow skills, projectile speed, attack speed, dexterity, and mana per enemy killed are the best things you can get. In your offhand, you're looking for a bow that also is going to be able to do some lightning damage for you. This bow was under a divine. I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but it was exalts. You're basically looking for physical damage. You can also get a big lightning damage roll, 1 arrow, and then on the suffixes you want plus levels or attack speed. I wouldn't worry about the physical damage leached as mana, because you don't do any physical damage with lightning rod. In the quiver, you want plus levels, you want arrow speed, physical damage, lightning damage, damage with bow skills, attack speed are all really nice. So we have this weapon swap set up. If you jump into your gems here, you can see that I have some things that are set up on weapon swap 1 and some that are set up on weapon swap 2. If you click use with weapon set 1 only here, so there's 2 options. If you have it on 1 only, no matter what weapon swap you currently have equipped, when you click your ice shot, it'll swap your weapon to weapon slot 1. This makes it very easy to make sure that you have the right weapon out to do the right skill. So Ice Shot needs to be on weapon set 1 as well as cast on freeze. We put cast on freeze on weapon swap 1 and then we put cast on shock on weapon swap 2 only. So that means when you switch over to your second weapon, it'll automatically enable your cast on shock. This is a little bit complex to set up, but once it is set up, it is effortless. You are in a map, you can lightning rod, and then you can freely swap over an ice shot, and it'll automatically swap all of your skills over for you, provided you set up the screen properly. So just a heads up, don't rely on this 1 and 2 number here, because as you can see, it says cast on shock is 1, but it's actually only on 2. So make sure that the checkbox is correct and do not rely on this here. As far as weapon swap stuff, that's all you need to do on the gems. And then lastly, you need to come over to the tree. This is the part that I find the most annoying, but it is the most important. What you can see here is we have a tree that has a beige-ish line on all the stuff that we have on both weapons. Then you have a green line for things that are just weapon 2 and a red line for things that are just weapon 1. All of this is going to be in the MAXROLL Planner, but just to give you an idea of what's happening here, we're taking all of these points down here to give us mostly lightning rod, which gives us non-crit hits, is lucky for lightning damage, and then a bunch of chance to shock and a bunch of increased damage. All of this is just for our lightning rod weapon swap. And then things that we take just for clear is something like trick shot and split shot, which gives us more chains off of terrain as well as more forks, more projectiles. Chaining off of everything is phenomenal. We also have this wheel here, which is really, really strong for clear. It gives you a bunch of crit chance against enemies on full life, even though we don't really crit. It's going to give you bigger hits sometimes. And it's also 80% increased damage with hits. So 20%, 20%, 80. That is 120% damage on the first hit on an enemy. And that includes things like Herald of Ice, and it makes you a little bit more likely to kill enemies with that first hit. We are using 19 of our weapon swap points, so we do have 5 more if you wanted to do a little bit more changing, but I find this setup is really, really nice. This is just a little tip for bosses here. We are allocating Heavy Frost with our Anoint, so if you can freeze an enemy before you start using your lightning rod on them, it will ignore their res. There's a decent bit of lightning pen on the tree down here, so it's not a huge deal, but you will get more damage if your enemy is frozen. Other things to note, you will need additional spirit on your build. You can get it on the chest or the amulet. I recommend the amulet. You need 50 total spirit. Now the downside here is that 50 is a perfect roll on an amulet, making it seem pretty difficult to get. However, here is a little trick to search for amulets. You put in a weighted sum, so that's, you click this button here, weighted sum, you put in 50, and then you put implicit spirit and plus to spirit here. So you put in amulet here, and you search, and this is going to show you all amulets that have a total of 50 spirit between the implicit and the affix down here. Now, if this affix is 50, it won't show you any implicits that have spirit, but this is a really nice discount way to get to 50. Unfortunately, I ended up with 48 and 11, which is not quite enough to add anything else, but it is enough to get to that 50 mark that I needed. So that is basically it. This build was an absolute blast to play. I killed tons of pinnacles with it. And again, it was on a very, very tight budget. For a map blaster, this did a great job with bosses. Killed lots of citadels. It is not a tank, so do not stand and face tank things. Something like the Count's charge roll. If you just stand and take the entire charge, you're probably going to die. But it absolutely melts map bosses and does a pretty good job with the pinnacles as well. So I definitely can recommend that you try out this build if you are looking for something zoomy and blasty to play in PoE 2. After playing this for a couple of weeks, which is a long time for me, I have moved on to a new build. I'm finally making my original Blood Mage character that I started PoE 2 with into something special. So come check out the stream, twitch.tv/AER0___. Stop by, say hello, maybe drop that Twitch Prime. I look forward to seeing you. If you like this sort of content, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below. I'd like to hear what you guys want me to play next in PoE 2. I'm always looking for something new to try out. So thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care.